Update. Am I the a-hole for cutting off my parents for leaving everything to my brother? Original post. My 24 female brother, 32 male, is a failure to launch. He's never been very smart. He did badly in school and never went to college. He tried 2 different trade schools, welding and mechanics, but he basically flunked out of both. He works at a gas station now. My brother and I are our parents' only children. They always treated us relatively equally until adulthood. They always insisted we earn our own way and refused to pay for college or anything. I joined the military at 17, got an associate's degree while I was in, and my GI Bill went towards my bachelor's. I'm working towards my master's now. My husband and I have bought a house and have done well for ourselves. My parents, however, fully paid for my brother to try trade school twice. They've given him cash when he was behind on rent and countless loans. They support him cosplaying as an adult. Meanwhile, they never paid for my wedding, education, nothing. I don't really care so much that they didn't give me money, but the disparity in how they've treated me versus my brother bothers me. Our parents are in their 60s now, and while they aren't that old, they're both in bad health and probably won't live another 10 years. They just recently started working on their will and notified us that they were leaving almost everything to my brother. But they want me to be their medical power of attorney, manage their estate, etc. I told my parents to give my brother everything and that I'm completely done with them. They told me to have some grace and understand the fact that he isn't very capable and needs their support, even after they're gone. My mother had a doctor's appointment this morning and asked me for a ride since she medically can't drive. I told her to ask her favorite child or pay for an Uber. Things have been tense and hostile. My brother called me to apologize and asked me not to be mad at him. I told him that I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at our parents for not treating us equally and that he didn't do anything wrong. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My mother refers to my brother as disabled even though he isn't. She's had him tested for every kind of learning disability there is. He just has a below average IQ. She thinks that counts as a disability when it isn't. Now for the top comments before reading the update. But they want me to be their medical power of attorney, manage their estate, etc. This is a huge ask, even if you stood to inherit. That you're expected to do all the heavy lifting and then be your brother's keeper after they pass. It's a hell of a lot. It does not sound disabled to me if he went to 2 different trade schools, welding and mechanic. Just lazy. Odds are if he gets the money, it'll not last him long. Then he'll be looking to you to pay his bills. He's not disabled, but he's very unintelligent and has poor critical thinking skills. He doesn't really understand how to manage money at all, despite having been taught how. If his IQ is that low, he is intellectually disabled. An IQ below 75 is considered intellectually impaired. It doesn't excuse the implied favoritism. When they had us tested, mine was 131, I believe, and his was around 80. It's been so many years, I'm having a hard time remembering. It definitely was above the cutoff for being considered intellectually disabled, because I remember them being surprised that he scored above it. Info needed. Why can't your brother live with them? Help them and take them to appointments. Seems like the least he can do. Can he drive? Is he disabled? Or just lazy? They don't want to ask him. He's forgetful and they probably wouldn't be able to rely on him anyways. Now for the update. Hey, so the consensus on my post was a bit of a mixed bag. I sat down with my parents and I wanted to give an update and answer some stuff. My brother is not actually disabled. He just has a low IQ, just over 80. You need an IQ under 70 where I live to be considered disabled and to qualify for any sort of benefits. My parents have babied him because from a young age, he wasn't as smart as other kids and had a low self-esteem because of that and was quick to give up on things when they seemed too hard. He does okay on his own now. He works and pays his bills most of the time. He drives and lives with a roommate. On to the update. I sat down with my parents and explained that I've always felt like they treated me worse than my brother. They always emphasized to me that as an adult, you need to support yourself and figure things out on your own. I had to join the military at 17 because I knew they'd kick me out when I was 18. My parents never offered me any support outside of raising me as a child. They didn't buy my husband and I a wedding gift. They didn't offer much of anything. Meanwhile, they brag about having over $1 million in the bank and having succeeded from nothing. Meanwhile, they paid to put my brother through 2 trade schools that he failed out of, offered him money to start his own business. They've always bailed him out when he was short on rent. For me, it's not so much about the money, but about the disparity in how we've been treated. It's obvious that they loved and cared for him more because they were willing to do these things for him, and not me. But despite them not being there for me, I've still done really well in life. I told my parents about all of this, and they were interrupting me and talking over me the whole time. They told me I'm not entitled to a dime when they die, and that I'm an adult and can handle myself. They just weren't understanding or even caring about my point. They told me I need to step up and treat them better, and that it's wrong of me to not take my sick mother to the doctor or take care of her because of money. Eventually, I just gave up on trying to talk about my feelings. They just don't care. I told them that they're adults, and they're not entitled to anything from me. Just like how they were never required to help me, I'm not required to help them. I told them to completely remove me from their will. I'm not willing to be their estate executor, medical power of attorney, nothing. I don't want a dime from them at this point. And I suggested they spend all the money they've saved over the years to pay for good nursing homes and an estate executor because I'm no longer willing to do anything for them. My mother was floored and asked if I'd really put my own parents in a nursing home. I asked if they'd really let their 17-year-old daughter join the army to get sexually harassed by older men in order to go to school without taking on a huge debt. My parents cried and yelled at me, and I left. And that's that, I guess. I kind of feel relieved, like a massive weight is off my shoulders. I have a wonderful husband. We own a nice home. I'm getting ready to start working on my master's degree, and we're thinking about maybe having a baby soon. I no longer have to worry about dealing with my parents. They're adults, and they can deal with their own problems, just like I've done mine. And yeah, that's it. I'm not sure if it's the update we wanted, but it is what it is. They've spent so long using you as their personal doormat, they're not even able to break from their delusion that you'll keep presenting your face for them to step on. Congrats on your newfound freedom. It sounds like Opie has made peace with a really difficult decision, and I think it's brave that she stood up for herself and set boundaries. Not the a-hole. Your parents are the a-holes. I know this might be a sucky suggestion, but you may need to go no contact with your brother as well. He'll be stuck with your care, and there's going to be a high likelihood they'll tell him to reach out to you for help. Or your brother may take the easy way out and stick them in a nursing home, which they totally deserve. My brother is not a terrible guy. He makes bad choices sometimes, but at the end of the day, he's still my older brother, and he tries to be good to me. I wouldn't cut him off without a good reason. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my dad's birthday dinner after overhearing my sister's comment about my miscarriage? A few months ago, me, 28 female, and my sister, Ava, 33 female, realized that we were both pregnant. She's been struggling with infertility, so we were all happy for her. I have an older son, 2 male, with my husband, 32 male. Sadly, a couple of weeks ago, I lost my baby. We told my family. They were all supportive, but I did sort of pull away from them. They would have tried to avoid discussing Ava's baby around me, but I didn't want to overshadow her, especially since she's wanted this for a long time. I also didn't want to be reminded of my own loss whenever I saw her. So I haven't been to my parents' place for Sunday dinners since, or really spent time with Ava, which we had been doing a lot before. I replied vaguely to any messages about my absence. It wasn't the best communication for me. Yesterday, my parents were hosting family dinner for my dad's birthday. I'd been thinking about going because I missed my family. And while of course the pain of losing my child has not faded, I'm at a point where I can at least put it a little to the side to be there for my sister and my new niece when she is born. So I let my family know that we would be coming. However, we had to get a gift for my dad, and then my son had a bit of a tantrum, so he got to my parents' place about an hour late. I wished my dad a happy birthday, then went to the kitchen, where my mom, Ava, and my sister-in-laws were. But before I went in, I heard them say my name, so I stopped. My mom was saying something like, "Well, I guess Opie's not coming." And Ava said, "What did you expect? She probably changed her mind and is just staying home again. Honestly, I'm sorry for her, but you would think she was the first woman to ever lose a kid, and it's not even her first kid. They then kept talking about other things, but I just wanted to leave. I went and got my husband, who was with my brother-in-law, dad, and brothers in the living room. I told my dad I was really sorry, but we needed to go. They all protested, but my dad could see how upset I was, so he didn't. We got my son and left. When we got home, I just kind of cried for a while. My husband asked me what happened, and I told him. He was angry that she said that, but thought we shouldn't have abruptly left because my dad had been looking forward to seeing us, and my son missed his cousins. After this, I was feeling conflicted. Later, my brother texted me, saying my dad had been really upset about us leaving and brought it up at dinner, which caused a whole fight because my mom and Ava realized that I must have heard them talking, and my dad was mad about it. My brother said that it was pretty bad and wished I had just stayed so none of it would have happened. Obviously, Ava didn't mean for me to hear that. They were all just frustrated that I'd been AWOL for so long. Now I feel bad because I didn't mean to ruin dinner. Obviously, what Ava said was hurtful, but I can see how my actions might have led to her saying something out of anger, and I could have talked to her about it later instead of just leaving. I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Jesus Christ. What is wrong with your family? It's been weeks since you lost your freaking baby. Weeks? You missed, what, 2 or 3 Sunday dinners? And this is how your mother and sisters speak of you? Then your brother wishes to rug sweep it all. Your family's clearly ridiculously non-confrontational, considering how it's been conditioned into you and your brother, because I would have stepped into that room immediately after hearing something so vile and told my father exactly why I was leaving. However, I understand that it was shocking, so I don't blame you for just leaving as opposed to breaking down or making a scene there. Even your husband is acting like you should have played along in those circumstances? Not the a-hole OP, but my lord, you're related to some troglodytes. You need to sit down and talk to your dad. He's on the right side of this, but even so, I don't believe he got the full story. There's no way they would own up to saying that. I agree with you. I see why OP distanced herself from her family initially. I think I would put that plan back into place more long-term. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cancel my vacation because my sister needs help with her kids? I, 34, booked a solo vacation months ago. It's a week-long trip to a quiet cabin in the mountains, and I've been looking forward to it for ages. I work a stressful job, and this trip is my way of decompressing and recharging. Last week, my sister Megan, 37 female, called me in a panic. Her babysitter quit unexpectedly, and she and her husband both have work commitments during the week I'm supposed to be away. Megan has 3 kids, all under 7, and asked if I could cancel my vacation to help her out. I felt bad for her, but told her no. I explained that this trip was planned long before her babysitter quit, and that I really needed a time away. I even suggested she try backup childcare services or ask one of her in-laws, but she insisted I'm her best option because her kids know me well. Megan didn't take my refusal well. She accused me of being selfish and said, "Must be nice to have no responsibilities and just do whatever you want." She's since rallied some family members who are now calling me out for abandoning her in a tough situation. I love my sister and my nieces and nephew, but I don't feel like it's my job to sacrifice something I've planned for months because of her lack of a backup plan. My parents are divided. My dad says I'm entitled to my time off, while my mom thinks I should step up for family. Now I'm wondering if I'm being too rigid or if I'm justified in keeping my plans. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cancel my vacation to help my sister with her kids? Now for the comments. Sounds like Grandma just volunteered, right? If she feels so strongly about family stepping up, maybe she could help out instead. Funny how people are quick to suggest what others should do, but aren't as eager to step in themselves. Inconveniencing someone else is easier. Definitely not the a-hole. You're entitled to your well-deserved vacation, especially since you planned it far in advance. It's unfortunate that your sister is in a tough spot, but her childcare issues aren't your responsibilities. Offering suggestions for backup childcare was thoughtful. She's the one being unreasonable by expecting you to cancel your plans entirely. Enjoy your trip and recharge guilt-free. Thank you for understanding. It's been a tough decision because I do care about my sister and her kids, but I really need this time to reset. I appreciate you pointing out that I tried to help by offering suggestions. I was starting to feel like I didn't do enough. She's right. It is nice to have no responsibilities. Being that carefree is compensation for missing out on the joys of motherhood, which is the path she chose. If you hadn't been on vacation that week, what would she have done for childcare? Suggest that she do that, not the a-hole. I'm sure she would have figured out a solution if I weren't going on vacation. I get that parenting comes with challenges, but it doesn't mean I'm obligated to put my life on hold every time she has an issue. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to accept I'm not going to travel to see his wife's son, who's a stranger to me? My parents are divorced and my dad has a wife. They got married 6 years ago and they met 8 years ago. She has an almost 10-year-old son. He lives with his dad in another state and I've only met him twice. I used to live equally with both of my parents until 3 years ago when I decided to live more with my mom. So I go to my dad's every other weekend now instead of every other week. And I'm 16, so I get some more sway in how I spend those 2 weekends a month with him. He doesn't get to demand a certain weekend like my parents could before. So my dad's wife's son is turning 10 soon, and they plan to fly out for his birthday. They said I needed to come with them. I said no and told Dad I'd see him another weekend. He told me we have to go as a family, and I need to see my brother. I rolled my eyes at him and told him my mom's boyfriend's kids are people I know better, and we don't call each other siblings. I also told him that his wife's kids and I share nothing, and we're strangers, so he needs to stop acting like we're connected. He told me it's wrong to say we're strangers, and that we're still family, even if we don't spend a lot of time together. And he said I need to make the effort to go. So I told him he needs to accept that I'm not going to travel out of state to see his wife's son who is, and always will be, a stranger to me. Dad said I was being disrespectful and dismissive, and that I should make the effort to get to know my only sibling and form a family. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I can never understand why so many parents try to force their kids into an unwanted blended family situation. It's weirder when there's such a big distance. We literally saw each other twice, and it's been so many years. That's not even blending families when it's like that. You can't force happy families. Your dad is delusional. You're right, he's wrong. Stick to your guns, not the a-hole. Right, and you can't really make strangers, not strangers like that either. And that's what we are. I don't know if he'd even remember me. I really don't remember much about meeting him. Update. My mom got a $30,000 personal loan in my name without my knowledge. The account is from February, which was when they bought a boat. Now, they've missed 4 payments and told me they're going to let it default since the boat can't be repossessed, and they're going to call DCFS on me. Original post. I knew my mom had her eye on a pontoon boat for the past year. She and my dad retired in 2022, and while they aren't swimming in money, they didn't seem to be struggling either, or so I thought. They bought a boat in February for a little over $30,000. I didn't think much of it, since they've always rented a pontoon boat 2 to 3 times a year and didn't appear to have money issues. At the start of July, I began preparing to buy a house. When I applied for a pre-approval, I found out my credit score was barely over 600, and I had an extra $30,000 plus in debt I had no idea about. Even worse, it was 90 plus days late. I told the lender the account wasn't mine, and he suggested my identity had probably been stolen, likely by someone close to me, since the money would have had to go to a bank account in my name. I shared a bank account with my ex-fiancé, so I asked the bank to look into it. They said the account had been closed a couple of years ago, when we broke up, and no money had been sent to or taken from it since. I filed a dispute with the company and the credit agencies, assuming I had been hacked or that my identity had been stolen. About a week ago, I received a notice from the company at my apartment, the first I'd heard from them, saying they were going to charge off the account if payment wasn't made. I requested more information and was linked to their fraud department. They were able to tell me where the money was sent, to a bank account from when I was a minor that I shared with my mom.
When I called the bank, they confirmed there was recent activity on the account, and statements showed the loan coming in and almost all of the money being transferred into what looked like my mom's account at the same bank. I haven't used that bank in more than a decade. I called my mom and asked her about it, and after a long pause, she admitted that's how they bought the boat. They made one payment on the account and realized they probably couldn't afford the monthly payment for the next 5 years. When I asked why they hadn't told me, she said it was because they figured I'd say no, and they were right, and that they had worked hard in their lives and wanted to enjoy retirement. It ended with them saying the boat couldn't be repossessed because it was a personal loan. My mom suggested I declare bankruptcy, and I told them I was going to the police. My mom said no too, claiming they wouldn't take it seriously. When I insisted, she hinted she might have to call DCFS on me. My 2-year-old burned himself on a hot pan earlier this year. A simple ER visit where we were told accidents happen and is fine, over an unsafe home. I still think I'm going to the police because declaring bankruptcy would make it impossible for me to buy a house. I just needed to vent and get any advice. Now for the top comments before reading the update. She stole $30K, potentially ruined your financial future for 7 years, threatened to put your child in a situation where they could be taken and put in foster care for a freaking pontoon boat? OP, this right here. All this unnecessary suffering and stress over a pontoon boat? I'm sorry, but your mom sucks. Yep, this right here. It's all about enjoying their retirement. They're willing to hurt and abuse anyone who gets in the way of them having a nice retirement. Don't worry about the FCS. Chances are they will not investigate the report anyway. If they do, it's obnoxious, but these are 80% unfounded. You may need an attorney to represent you and file cease and desist letters that could turn into restraining orders. They stole $30,000 from you, and it was premeditated. They couldn't qualify for the loan themselves, so they stole the money from you instead, without asking. With a dollar amount, the DA is likely to press charges. I keep being shocked by parents who steal from their kids. This takes it to a fun new place with the threats of Child Protective Services. Please report this to the police. In addition, and tell them about the threats to contact Child Protection. For what it's worth, threats to file for grandparents' rights or to call CPS are a bright line for me. I would strongly recommend that you consider cutting contact with your parents or limiting their involvement with your family. They can't be trusted. Now for the update. I filed my police report the same day as my first post. The officer and I talked for about 20 minutes, and I provided a printed statement from the bank. A few days later, I spoke with a detective for another 20 minutes. Fast forward about 2.5 weeks, and my dad called to say my mom had been arrested. He said an officer and a detective showed up at their house asking to speak with her. When she went onto the porch, they grabbed her and arrested her. The detective, the same one I talked to, explained they had a warrant. My mom has never been in trouble with the law in her life, and she was arrested on a felony charge. They tried talking to her, but she immediately requested a lawyer. They stopped questioning her, but didn't allow her to see a lawyer right away. My dad was furious, but the detective told him to have a lawyer go to the county jail in the morning before she went to see the judge. The next morning, her lawyer spoke with her, and she was released in the afternoon with a new court date. About a week later, I received a call from DCFS requesting to meet with me about my son. I had nothing to hide, so I agreed. He spoke for about half an hour at my apartment, and I explained the situation. The caseworker seemed understanding and said there were no obvious issues, but she had to follow up on the report. I will say that if I'm ever in trouble, I'm hiring a lawyer. The case was dismissed at her next court date in late September. The detective called me the next day and explained that the state attorney believed they wouldn't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she intentionally stole my identity. He said he figured it was a flimsy reason because he had documents from the bank and loan company. He mentioned that the state attorney often drops cases, even clear-cut ones, especially when it's non-violent and they have a hired attorney. She never made a statement other than having her attorney tell the detective she didn't do it. The detective also said the loan company might go after my mom in a lawsuit. What brings me back here is that, a couple of weeks ago, the account was removed from my credit report. Even better, I got a letter from DCFS yesterday stating that the allegation against me was unfounded. I'm never talking to my piece of trash mom again. Thank you to everyone who gave me advice and hope in my first post. It just sucks that she'll probably end up with a free boat out of it, unless the loan company sues her, which I hope they do. Send the loan company the address where the boat is kept, with a photo. The problem is, they took out a personal loan, not a boat loan. In other words, they borrowed cash in her name, then bought the boat with cash, so the boat is not collateral for the loan. They might be able to sue the parents, but they'd have to basically prove in civil court what the state's attorney would not bother prosecuting, which would probably cost more than $30,000 in legal fees. Personally, if my parents called DCFS on me for revenge, that would be the end of my relationship with them, never to revive again. I would never let them see the grandchildren. OP, freeze your children's credit too. Having lawyers send a cease and desist letter stating, since you took out a loan in my name and then called in DCFS, you are no longer able to contact me or my child. Attach a copy of the loan papers and DCFS report. If she tries after that, look into a restraining order. Next story. Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to subsidize my wife and kids anymore? Original post. All three of them are adults with full-time jobs. None of them have contributed financially to our household budget. My wife went back to work full-time when our youngest was 7. He is currently 24, and our oldest is 27. The kids have no student debt. Our retirement property is overseas, and that's where I am currently. 2 months ago, I finally had enough. I came home from an out-of-town work trip, and none of the food I requested be in the house was there. And it wasn't anything extravagant, just a loaf of sourdough, some deli meat, cheese, and a few condiments. Enough so I could make a sandwich before going grocery shopping. Apparently, that was too difficult for 3 adults to manage. My wife and I had an argument about it, and the kids took her side. I reminded them they were supposed to be contributing to the budget, but all 3 of them started whining about how expensive life is. No kidding, I'm working to support all 4 of us. Whatever, I made plans to go to our property on my next rotation. So after my time off, I went back to work. When I flew home, I just stayed at the airport overnight and flew out the next morning. I also didn't deposit money into the budget account, so now they're paying for everything. The house, my truck, and my wife's car are all fully paid off. They're covering their own utilities, property taxes, food, and bills. And they're all furious that I'm not giving them money. I'm good here. When I go back to work, I'll do the same thing. Stay overnight at the hotel and fly to work. My company even flew me to a more convenient city to fly out from. I think 3 adults with full-time jobs and a free place to live should do fine. I probably missed a bunch of information, but I'm a bit drunk, so feel free to ask questions. If they're not stupid, I'll answer. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. No, not the a-hole. What's your next move? It already sounds like you're separated. Is that becoming permanent? I don't know how to assist you, but I wish you the best of luck. I'd be curious what exactly is expensive when they all work full-time and have no rent or car payments to make. If their electricity bills divided by 3 are so high it eclipses a rent payment, they should use less. If they spend their money on food deliveries and shopping, too bad, so sad. Not anymore. Not the a-hole, but you probably should have made your kids adults long before this. From what you wrote, they appear to live with you and don't have much going for them. Yep, sounds like some parenting failure. Kind of made the situation is now like you guys didn't leave me sandwich stuff. That's it. Good luck. Convo should have been had 10 years ago. Are you even sure they're paying for things like the property taxes and other bills? Are they under your name? Because you might want to switch it out so they don't let it just go into collection and you end up with a bill. I work with a guy who taught me a very important thing. There's a huge difference between a problem and my problem. Now for the update. I woke up and read so many more comments than I expected. Many of them made me think, I really don't love my wife anymore. I love my kids, but they are leeches. I will be contacting a lawyer and initiating a divorce. I also will be pulling the plug on my retirement plans with them. I have enough money to last me the rest of my life here. I also have a defined benefit pension, but it won't kick in for another 5 years. Part of the reason I was working so hard away from home was to provide for my family. But now I see they don't give a half damn about me. I'll be offering my wife the house in North America and my truck in return for a fast divorce. I think that's fair. I'll keep my home down here. The other option would be to liquidate and split everything, but she spent 30 years getting the house how she wants it, so I doubt she'll go for that. If she wants to keep the house, I guess that'll be up to her and the kids now. Thanks for helping me turn a drunken rant into a life decision. I was probably headed that way, but an outside perspective crystallized my thoughts. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my sister's college when I'm paying for my fiancé's? So I, 29 male, grew up dirt poor. Like sharing meals and lights off half the month poor. My parents did their best, but with 5 of us, money was always tight. I hustled like crazy after high school, went to community college, then transferred to a good university while working full-time. I graduated with loans but landed a solid job in tech. Fast forward a decade and now I've got a good income and no debt. My fiancée, 26 female, is finishing her degree. She's been working too, but with her schedule and the cost of school, I offered to pay for her last 2 semesters so she could focus and graduate without loans. I want us to start our marriage on solid ground, so I don't mind helping her out. Enter my younger sister, 21 female, who's still in college. She recently found out I'm paying for my fiancé's tuition and flipped, saying if I can afford that, I should help her too. She's always been bitter about me getting out and doing well while she and the rest of my family are still struggling. I get it, but here's the thing. I've worked hard to be where I am, and I feel like my fiancé and I are building a future together. My sister and I aren't close, and it feels like she's asking out of entitlement, not need. Now, my parents have chimed in, saying it's family first and I'm abandoning them. I don't think I owe anyone anything, especially since I've already helped out when I could, paid off their electric bill last winter, etc. I'm torn. I don't want to be a selfish jerk, but I also don't want to set a precedent of being the family ATM. Am I the a-hole? Your fiancé is your family. Remind your parents and sister of that. You think he is an ATM? Better not to give a single penny. Exactly. Once you start, they'll expect it every time. Better to set boundaries now than deal with guilt trips forever. Tell them, yes, family first. That is why I am prioritizing the family fiancé and I are building and the family we will be creating. Yes, family first means focusing on the family OP and his fiancé are building together. He's prioritizing a future they're creating, which is exactly what he should be doing. Not the a-hole. You don't have to take care of your adult sister. You're not her husband, nor her father. She is an adult and can handle her own things. I'd go low contact with the entire family if I were you. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that my stepdad was cheating with our neighbor and ruining their marriage? So I, 19 female, found out my stepdad was cheating on my mom, and now my whole family thinks I'm the bad guy. Here's what happened. I was at a coffee shop the other day, just grabbing a latte and trying to chill. As I am sitting there, I see my stepdad walk in. Nothing weird at first, I just assumed he was getting coffee too. But then our next door neighbor walks in right behind him and they sit down together. They were super close, and at first I thought maybe it was just a friendly catch-up. But then they started holding hands across the table. And at one point, he leaned over and kissed her. Right there, in the middle of the cafe. I felt sick. My mom has been through so much, and I couldn't believe he'd do this to her. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, but I knew I had to let her know. So I snapped a couple of photos on my phone, just in case she needed proof, and later that night I showed her. She was devastated, obviously. I mean, who would it be? She ended up confronting him, and things have been a mess since then. She's been talking about leaving him and they're arguing all the time. Now here's where it gets worse. Somehow everyone in my family found out what happened and they all think I made a huge mistake by telling her. My aunts and uncles are saying I shouldn't have gotten involved, that it was a grown-up issue, and that I basically ruined their marriage. They keep saying my mom and stepdad would have worked things out eventually and that I'm the reason they're falling apart. I'm honestly so confused and hurt by all this. I really thought I was doing the right thing by not letting my mom stay in the dark, but now everyone's making me feel like I made everything worse. So, am I the a-hole for telling my mom about the affair and ruining their marriage? Not the a-hole. He did wrong. You looked out for your mom, but you are being used as scapegoat. Thank you. He is a total a-hole. If you kept this secret for your stepdad, your mom would feel betrayed by you when it all came out later. Sooner or later, everything comes out. So, most of your family thinks cheating should be kept secret? What a family you have. Perhaps there is more cheating and everyone is afraid you will squeal on them too. I would ask them straight up if they think what he did was fine and if they think cheating is okay. Yeah, they're probably cheaters as well. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my disabled sister at my wedding? My 22 female sister Anna, 21, is special need. She has severe autism, and while she's verbal, most of her communication is physical, like sign language due to her social discomfort. She does speak around family though, and has pretty bad cognitive skills. She can't comprehend boundaries and lives with our parents so they can best watch her. I am getting married in 3 months. We planned a simple wedding and reception at my fiancé Michael's parents' barned farm. Since it's all gonna be DIY and we aren't planning anything too expensive, we can do things pretty quickly, since flowers, food, and decor will be provided by his family. I sent our invites last week, and I asked that Anna not come. I told my parents I understood if that would mean they may not show up, but it was just a heads up. Why no Anna? She has an issue with touching Michael and trying to kiss him. At times when we were at my parents' house, Anna would try and grab Michael's hands, try to lean in to kiss him, or would have a really bad meltdowns if she wasn't allowed to be directly next to him. We've tried speaking to her, but there's only so much we can do and she doesn't really understand. I told my parents I just want one day for Michael to be my partner and not Anna's comfort person. They called me selfish and asked how I expected them to agree to something like this. They told me Anna's disabled and may never experience a wedding of her own, and while I have Michael for probably the rest of our lives, she'll have no one, and that Michael and I can be a little more understanding to the reality of her life. I feel like a total A. And what they're saying really has gotten to me, and I'm starting to question my decision. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before the little update. Not the a-hole. I don't care if I get downvoted. You're right. She's incapable of leaving your fiancé alone on the only day she needs to leave him alone. Best wishes to you and your future husband. Edited to add, since this blew up, let me clarify. She needs to leave him alone every day. And that is solely the responsibility of the parents to teach those boundaries, not Opie or fiancé. I wholeheartedly agree. Opie, can you do a celebration with your sister at a later date? I understand should be on him, but at least your wedding day, he is yours and only yours. Congrats, by the way. Thank you for putting this so eloquently. I couldn't have written it better myself. Opie, you're not the a-hole in this situation, although I totally empathize with your dilemma. It can be a sticky subject to discuss disabilities, especially given a family tie, but you are not asking/acting in bad faith whatsoever. Congratulations, Opie, and here's to many years of joy ahead. Your partner deserves to not be harassed every day, but especially on his wedding day. It doesn't matter if she doesn't understand, she still can't do it. If your family won't prevent her from doing things, then she isn't allowed in those situations. Yeah, no one's talking about this. Seems like harassment. I don't wonder what Michael thinks about the whole situation. It's his wedding day too. Not the day home, but neither is poor Anna. It's your parents. They told on themselves because it sounds like they expect you to share your spouse with her to make her life more fair somehow. It really sounds like they've been secretly encouraging and supporting this behavior. The most charitable thing I can come up with is maybe they've deluded themselves into thinking anything to avoid a meltdown. But that way lies madness. I also think that parents are using her future husband to fill a role that he never agreed to. It's completely wrong of them. And now for the update. My parents called me letting me know they won't be coming, and that it's best I don't bring Michael around anymore since I've chosen some man over my sister. They told me that Anna wanting to kiss Michael and hug him is normal for a woman her age, and that she doesn't understand what her feelings mean. I suggested they try to redirect her during the wedding, but they said Michael's gonna be family to her, and he needs to get over it. I suggested they watch the wedding via web, and they said that's not fair, and that they deserve to see things in person. I ask if I could pay for someone with proper credentials to watch her that day while they attend, and they ask what I would do when they died, and if I'd pawn her off every time. I dropped the unfortunate truth bomb that I don't want to put any more of my life aside for Anna anymore. I did it up until I turned 18, and that Anna's not my life's responsibility and I won't be her keeper. I assured them I'd pay for her care, but if she's okay doing this to Michael, then I worry if I ever do choose to have children and what she'd do to them. They said I was sick for suggesting she'd do anything to my future children, and hung up on me. They sent a lengthy text telling me not to contact them until I could do the right thing. So that's where we are right now. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my niece's birthday party? I, male 43, met my now ex-wife while I was grieving my late wife. I was weak, dealing with bereavement and my sick son, and latched to my ex as soon as my sister introduced her as her friend. We were married for over 3 years when I caught her with my ex-friend who was my best friend, a year after my son passed away. Our marriage already had issues, but that was the last straw. She remained my sister's close friend, which is something I have no control over, but it absolutely hurts like hell. My sister and her husband lost their home and are struggling right now. They mentioned at a family gathering that they won't be hosting a party for my niece's birthday this year, which was unfair because the 16th birthday celebration is a special year for every kid. My son didn't get the chance to have a 16th birthday party, and so I decided to throw my niece a surprise birthday party at a restaurant and called my sister to bring my niece and come to the restaurant without ruining the surprise for her. My sister knew and invited some friends, which was on me as well, but I figured that after 2 years of pain, loss, sadness, then why not enjoy one evening? The family arrived. My brother was already there and we were having a great time, until I saw my ex-wife approach our table. I was confused. I asked what she was doing there. She said my sister invited her. I saw red and started lashing out, telling her to leave. My sister said she wanted her there, and that I should either quiet down or leave if she was making me uncomfortable. I was dumbfounded. I asked her if she really just tried to kick me out of the birthday party celebration that I arranged and paid for, and she glanced at me then said this was her friend. I told her then she needed to take her friend and leave. She got up and told my niece and brother-in-law to get up so they could leave. But I said why? They didn't do anything wrong, and my niece doesn't deserve to have her birthday ruined like that. My niece and brother-in-law said they were staying. Mom left with them as well, and later they both said I made my niece's birthday about me, and should have ignored my ex who's my sister's best friend since she means nothing to me now. I argued that I arranged for the event and had a right to kick her out, which they called financial mistreatment and control. I replied that there was no way I'd let my ex anywhere near me after she caused damage while I was vulnerable and grieving. Mom said she understood, but I should have just sucked it up for my niece's sake instead of causing a scene. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister made it all about her. She put a friendship first. I think you need to cut them all off that are trying to get you to forgive, and tell them each and every person mourns loss differently. Not only am I mourning my first wife, but the betrayal of wife number 2 coupled with the passing of my son. I'm cutting contact with folks who do not understand this and act in painful ways towards me. It is sad that people have zero empathy, and I hope they never have to deal with such loss and betrayal. And I'd cut contact with them until given a sincere apology. Also, have you gotten any counseling for all you've been dealing with? I was on the fence about whether Opie needs to cut Mom off, but I think you're right. Opie's mom lost all moral authority to chastise Opie when she left a party with sister. She put her granddaughter's feelings last, and made this an even bigger scene. Opie's mother is barely deserving of the title. To be so callous of your child's feelings after everything Opie has been through, starting with that line about financial mistreatment was the clincher for me. When you pay, you own the guest list. Want to control who comes? Find a way to be less of a financial dog plop. Not the a-hole. Your sister is disrespectful AF. It's telling that neither her daughter or her husband followed her out. Everyone sucks here. Yeah, your sister is an A for putting you there, but also what is your ex's relation with your niece? You have nothing there, and I'll be honest, most best mates I know are also generally close with their kids. Yes, you paid, but also you ruined what you claim to be a special moment for your niece as well. Her sweet 16 is gone. You should have clarified that point a bit or at least checked beforehand. Don't worry, still think your sister is also wrong. Should have told you, etc. But both need to grow up since this was about your niece. If it was your birthday or whatever, fine, throw them out, no problem. Would not be the A. But this involved someone else who may have a close connection. Maybe not, but I doubt you'd be truly informed about that. If the sister cared about her brother at all, then she'd ask her friend to stay away from the party. The fact that she not only brought her but left with her says a lot. She could have just asked her to leave and continued to celebrate with her daughter. Also, why should he be run out of a party he set up out of love for his niece? You blame Opie for not checking beforehand, but I don't think it's normal to have asked someone who betrayed your brother in the worst way possible while he was grieving your nephew to not come to this party. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for letting a teenage boy spend a night in jail before dropping the charges? So I feel like I'm always posting here, and here is my latest ask. When I moved cities a few months ago, I rented an apartment on a monthly contract while looking for another one to buy. A couple months in, the owner told me that she will be putting it on the market, so she will be needing my schedule to arrange showings. I offered to buy it, and not even 2 weeks later, I was the owner of my own apartment. I live in the second floor. The first floor is owned by a family, father, mother, and 2 teen boys. The ground floor is 2 garages for cars, one for each owner. And finally, the roof is split into 2 roofs with an 8-foot wall that separate doors off the landing. When I bought my house, I wanted to redo the kitchen and bathroom, so I took some cookies and knocked on my neighbor's house to ask for their schedule. I didn't want to do work while they were at home to avoid bothering them. That day, I was in my balcony and heard a husband complaining about me buying the apartment. Apparently, they were planning to do so, but I beat them to it. Now, fast forward a couple of months and I have turned my roof into a garden, with raised beds for my veggies, pots for flowers, some garden furniture, and an area with some wood and outside tiles. While coming out one day, I met my neighbor and she asked to see the garden with her sons. I showed it off and thought that was the end of it. That is until I started noticing how some of my flowers were cut, the furniture was moved, etc. So I installed a camera and saw that her sons jump over the dividing wall along with some friends and spend their time there. I told the parents and asked them to tell their kids to stop, that most of the time I'm not at home, and if something happened, there is no way to open the door to help them, metal door with a huge padlock. They said okay, but the kids continued to do so. They even started destroying my plants for telling on them. So I gave their mother an ultimatum. They either stop or I will be calling the police. She scoffed and called me an entitled witch. The next time I got an alert on my phone, I called the cops and said someone broke into my rooftop garden. They came pretty fast, and only one kid managed to escape. The other was caught red-handed and taken to the precinct. Their father almost broke my door and started screaming at me to come and drop the charges. But I just threatened to call the police on him as well and went to bed. This morning I went to the precinct and dropped the charges, so he spent the night in their jail with, according to his mom, drug dealers and thugs. I was so sure of my decision that I was teaching him the consequences of his actions. But my mom said that I was too harsh. She said that I punished the parents, not that I taught the kid a lesson. So guys, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, not even remotely the a-hole. You talk to them. You talk to them again. They, instead of disciplining their kids, basically left you with no other choice. Hell, with that kind of attitude, frankly, you would still never be the a-hole even if you didn't drop the charges. Probably shouldn't have. Probably should have called the police on the father too. I know you need peace where you live, but they jumped so far over the reasonable behavior line that an Olympic vaulter would be jealous. I concur and would like to add, don't engage with them beyond saying that the next time you will not be dropping charges. In writing, if possible. The parents need a dose of reality. Also get a locking mailbox that can handle packages, and a camera on the front porch in it. Entitled people do not like hearing no or consequences. Don't trust any of them farther than a newborn infant can throw them. Not the a-hole. Your neighbors are entitled a-holes, and one day their son will get in more serious trouble, and it'll be all their fault. I wouldn't have dropped the charges. I would have dropped the charges as well. Opie was trying to teach a lesson, not ruin the kid's life. Even though he was a minor, actually pressing charges seems harsh. The kid's parents may think Opie took it too far, but they didn't. Nobody should have to put up with the destruction of property. Once the parents knew there were cameras, they should have laid down the law. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not contributing for my ex's kids' college? For background, I was with my ex Meg for 13 years. We did not get married because both of us got married young before and decided marriage wasn't for us. Her son Eric is 18 and a senior in high school, finalizing where he'll be headed for college very soon. Eric's dad has never been in the picture and I played somewhat a fatherly role, but always made sure to build a boundary. He calls me by my first name. Told him I'm not his replacement dad, all that. I have a son and she played a stepmom role for him, but not to the degree since my ex is still very much a mother and we split custody. We broke up in June over some irreconcilable differences, and I've since moved on. In the past, I'd figured I'd help pay for Eric's college, assuming I'd still be with Meg, but never promised or set up a fund or anything like that. Now that it's getting to the point of deciding where to go, Meg asked me how much I'm going to contribute, which just shocked me. I thought it was common sense that I wouldn't pay for college for someone who's not my kid and whose mom I'm not with. Then Eric called me to ask the same thing, to which I basically told him the same thing. Then they both got mad at me and called me some names, making me doubt myself. Edit. People have asked if she is paying for my son. He is doing ROTC and got a full scholarship through that program. I did not promise to pay for his college. There was just kind of an understanding that we handled bills as a household. We did not live together the whole 13 years. We did for about 8, from ages 10 to 17. I do travel for work often and work heavy hours, so I wasn't always around though. Not day home. Breakups suck. They were pretty presumptuous, assuming you'd be still paying after a breakup. This is how I viewed it. I really thought it was common sense that I wouldn't be paying after breaking up. It is common sense. People are just entitled. Not the a-hole. Is she going to contribute to her son's college education? Also, she tried to guilt/manipulate you by having Eric call when you had already spoken to her. I'd limit any unnecessary contact with her, since she seems to think she/her son are entitled to your money. Not the a-hole. He's not your son, she's not your girlfriend, and you have no obligation to pay for his college. Incidentally, how much is Meg paying for your son to go to college? Funny how that works out. Luckily, got a full scholarship with ROTC, so that pays for tuition plus living costs. Does X know this? If not, I would ask her if she plans on paying for your son's college just to see what she says. I don't really get enjoyment out of being petty. Would rather just move on.